our quorum. Are we good?
We're getting close.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm here. That's sufficient, isn't it?
You think so, I know. We are streaming live now too.
It looks like we are at a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we'll call the meeting, the Riverside County Transportation Commission meeting of Wednesday, June 9th, 2021 to order. Can we have, well, I'll do the roll call, the housekeeping remarks first. So remember, we're participating in our remote meeting and we're all going to do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation. Before we begin, I want to review some guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. So please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell or your desk phone. This will ensure that we're not hearing any feedback or causing interruption during the meeting. And after each agenda item, we will make sure that all the public have an opportunity for comment. And for Zoom instructions for those on Zoom, if you'd like to make a public comment on the Zoom screen, please click on the raise hand button. If you're using Zoom on your smartphone, tap your screen, look for the more option and then raise hand button on the screen. And for those calling in using the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. And remember that this is a Brown Act compliant meeting, so let's do our best to, given our restrictions of Zoom, be as compliant with Brown Act as possible. So having said all that, can we have roll call, please?
Yes, good morning, everyone. District 1?
District 1 here.
District 2?
Here.
District 3?
Here.
District 4?
Here.
District 5? Banning? Beaumont?
Here.
Blythe?
Here.
Ella Mesa?
Here.
Canyon Lake?
Here.
Cathedral City?
Here.
Coachella? Corona?
Present.
Desert Hot Springs?
Present.
Eastville?
Present.
Hemet?
Here.
Indian Wells?
Present.
Indio?
Present.
Arupa Valley?
I am here.
La Quinta?
Here.
Lake Elsinore?
Here.
Menifee?
Menifee's here.
Moreno Valley? Marietta?
Here.
Norco?
Here.
Palm Desert?
Here,
Palm Springs?
Present.
Harris?
Here.
Rancho Mirage?
Here.
Riverside?
Present.
San Jacinto? Temecula? Wildemar?
Here.
Caltrans District 8?
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
thank you. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please, Supervisor Spiegel, would you please lead us?
Please join me in the 31 words that represent the freedoms and the opportunities we have, and at the same time, please keep our prayers for those that are protecting us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the reminder before we made our pledge. So now we'll move to public comments. Are there any public comments on items not listed on the agenda?
I do see a hand up from Marvin Norman.
Okay. And just so you know, Clerk, I will be watching, but if you can help me and assist me in this process for anybody with their hands up, I'd appreciate the help.
Of course.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Norman. Is he elevated and ready to go?
Hi, yes. Marvin Norman here. I'm a member of the Rail Passenger Association of California, Rail Pac, and I'm calling or commenting about the plans for the Coachella Valley Rail. I know it's on the agenda, but I've looked through, I've been following the project for a while, and so one thing that we're concerned about, and I've noticed, is that it's a project that, I mean, obviously RCTC is doing the project, so it's going to focus on Riverside and Riverside County's needs, but especially as the environmental documents has put out, if the project's going to cost $1 billion at least to build a track for Union Pacific, we definitely should be getting more public benefit out of it than just 2 daily round trip trains. So it would be good to see the commission work with other partners around, including Arizona and Calexico or Imperial Valley. I know that has been studied in the past, and in some of the first studies, they looked at extending the service all the way down to Calexico. And also, even just from RCTC standpoint, even if it's not looking at Calexico, look at more than just 2 trains per day, 2 round trips per day. Look at, maybe not all the way to Surfliner frequency, but something more than 2 trains a day round trip, because if the public's being asked to spend $1 billion, we should get more out of it than that, especially since we know that Union Pacific is opening a new quote unquote pop-up intermodal yard conveniently right where this track would start in Colton. So we should be questioning why we should build them a track for their new yard. And also, I mean, looking at the stuff as well, that they still have single track between Indio and Yuma. And so I think it's something should really be asked why we should build them 80 miles of third track when they still have 30 miles of single track that could be filled. And I mean, I'm not an expert on rail schedule modeling, but it seems to me like that could be a bit of a bottleneck, that the third track won't necessarily be needed for as much as they are demanding or proposing. So that, once again, thank you for the time. And yeah, the project, it's a good project in concept, but it needs to be, more. We need more out of it than just 2 trains if we're spending that amount of money. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your input, Mr. Norman. And I was remiss that I did not provide the instructions for public comments, and I'm going to do that now. So under the Brown Act, the commission should not take action on or discuss matters raised during public comment portion of the agenda that are not listed on the agenda. So members of the public may make public comments when recognized by the chair. Each individual speaker is limited to speak 3 continuous minutes or less. So we've done well so far. So let's look at our next speaker, Brian Yanity.
Hello, good morning, members of the board. Can you hear me here?
Yes.
Yes. My name is Brian Yanity, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I am the Vice President South of the Rail Passenger Association of California and Nevada, and I am just want to reiterate what my fellow member Marvin just spoke about, but also I would like to mention the Sunset Limited, the Amtrak Sunset Limited. There's an effort underway to increase the frequency of that to daily. Right now, it stops 3 times a week in Palm Springs. That's the only current stop of the Amtrak Sunset Limited in Riverside County. And the Sunset Limited, just a reminder, it goes from Los Angeles to New Orleans via Tucson, El Paso, San Antonio, Houston, and points in between. And it would be a great benefit for that to go daily. In 2011, this body, the Riverside County Transportation Commission Board, passed a resolution in favor of Daily Sunset Limited, and that needs to be done again, I think, and send that to our congressional representatives. And on the Coachella Valley Rail project, which Marvin just talked about. We do want to see more than 2 trains a day each way. And the third track that UP is asking for to go from Colton to Indio, there's a lot of utility to that third track beyond Coachella Valley Rail passenger service, as important as that is, and that should be 12 trains a day both ways, in my personal opinion. You can be used to enhance the Sunset Limited, which I just mentioned, to get that to daily. It'll provide a lot more freight capacity for Union Pacific. There's also the proposed passenger trains from Arizona to Los Angeles via the Coachella Valley. All of those things should be factored in when it comes to that third track, along with the capacity of the BNSF San Bernardino subdivision, which goes from Riverside, through Riverside from San Bernardino to LA via Fullerton. If the Sunset Limited go to daily, the most likely scenario is to be rerouted through Riverside and Fullerton. Right now it goes to Pomona and Ontario. So downtown Riverside could be a stop on the Sunset Limited. So I just would like to ask your support for that.
Thank you very much for your time today, and thank you for your engagement. We appreciate it. And please remember, Mr. Norman and Mr. Yanity, and I kind of bet you've already thought about this, but make sure that you provide your feedback to the document that was released on the proposed rail line. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to provide any public comment?
We did receive an email from Jim Steiner that he would like to comment. I do see him on the meeting.
Yes, good morning. Sorry, I can't find my raise hand button. I don't know what the heck happened to it. I haven't been able to find it for months now. Anyways, good morning, Ms. Mayor, Chair Harnick, and commissioners. My name is Jim Steiner. I'm a Corona City Council member representing District 4. I am also the RCTC alternate for Commissioner West Speak. When the $1.4 billion 91 expansion project was completed a few years ago, our residents had high hopes that this project would improve their commute and the overall conditions on our local streets, specifically on the west end of Corona near Service Club Drive and Green River Road. Unfortunately, we have really seen little or no improvement. Several projects are in the works, though, along the 91 that will hopefully speed up the traffic flow on the freeway, which in theory should improve circulation on our local streets. I am thankful for this and to the RCTC commissioners for approving these upcoming projects. As it relates to the 15, we are frustrated, angry, and disappointed once again because after all the work was done, the backup on our city streets and in our residential neighborhoods on the south end of town have become notably worse, primarily on Ontario Avenue, Foothill Parkway / El Cerrito Road, Masters Drive, and Cajalco. We still have a horrible pinch point on the west end of Corona, and now we have a brand new one on the south end of Corona. For years, residents and commuters haven't been able to get out of Corona in a reasonable time in the morning as they try to get to their jobs in Orange and LA County. Now they can't get out of Corona as they navigate south to return home from their long days at work. Even worse for the citizens of Corona, though, is that they are stuck in this mess as they simply try to get their kids home from school, go out for some dinner, or patronize local businesses. We can't even catch a break on the weekends. Just this last Saturday and Sunday around noon, traffic was barely moving on the southbound I-15 from the 91 to Cajalco. Citizens have suggested to me that maybe RCTC should simply close the recently opened toll lanes on the 15 until adequate funding is available to build the proper freeway infrastructure that doesn't negatively impact local streets. Others have suggested moving the southbound toll road exit points further to the north to allow for greater distance to accomplish their merge to the general purpose lanes and off ramps. I am told that RCTC has acquired the funding to add an auxiliary lane near Cajalco and is also looking at some restriping options. On behalf of the residents of Corona, I urge RCTC to continue looking at some temporary or permanent improvements in the short term, while long-term improvements continue to be planned and funded. Morning and afternoon commutes will likely always be a challenge for our region, but the hundreds of millions of dollars invested in our local freeways should not make life more difficult for our citizens on the local streets and in their neighborhoods. So thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Councilmember Steiner, for your time and for your input. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Do we see anyone?
I am not seeing any other hands raised.
Okay. So this morning, commissioners, if I may, I do have some comments to make. And I've had some time to consider the issues raised at our last commission meeting and generally how we as commissioners communicate to our residents. I was reminded that the communication we provide to our communities concerning our work here is critically important. And we have a responsibility not only to bring our community's voices to this commission, but we also have an obligation to share in an accurate manner the sometimes difficult facts about traffic management, financing, and growth with our cities. That means understanding and voicing the commission's role on our county's transportation network. It means sharing with our community members the process for deciding how projects are funded and ultimately approved by this commission. It may also require correcting inaccurate information circulating within our communities that, if left unaddressed, can lead to tempers flaring among our residents. So over the last few weeks, I've seen on social media a small and persistent set of voices speaking out against the 15 express lanes and other commission-led work. One person wrote online that the 15 express lanes project designer, and I quote, should be shot. While the comment was eventually removed, these words are violent and words matter. I fear we've all become so accustomed to harmful online content that we are numb to language like this, but I think we can all agree that this level of violent speech is disturbing and it must stop. On the 91, we've had BB gun shootings. A little boy was killed on the 55 freeway in an apparent road rage incident. And our hearts go out to the victims and their families of the San Jose Valley Transportation Authority mass shooting. Words do matter. And it does not take much for violent words to spark a violent reaction. Inciting anger does not encourage constructive thought or solutions. With calm, we can process, we can bring logic, and have productive conversations. Every month, we come together to make decisions for our county's transportation system. We work to implement voter-approved Measure A projects, provide oversight and direction to staff on projects and budgeting, and we work to respond to the needs of our communities. Let's commit to doing this well, respectfully, civilly, to ask questions, participate in the process, and communicate to our residents and community groups the meaning behind the work we do. That is the foundation of a democratic society and a privilege and honor that we all share as elected officials. We are not going to agree on every issue, but let's agree to consider the importance of how we communicate in order to do our part to turn down the temperature, turn down the tone so that we can work together finding real solutions for the issues in front of us. So thank you very much. And I know that as we continue in this meeting, we'll do our best to find the solutions that we need to make our community's quality of life as good as it can possibly be. So thank you for affording me that moment.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just want to say thank you for your words. Very powerful. As you said, words matter. And I just want to thank you for your leadership and making your point for all of us. I think it makes good sense. Thank you so much. Appreciate what you just did.
Thank you, Supervisor. And that means a lot coming from you. Thank you so much. That is very important. And I know we can get this job done and do it well. So let's.
Here, I would like to jump in and ride on Supervisor Perez's coattails. I did use the emoji clapping. It stays up for a little bit. And I noticed that Dana actually did the physical clapping. So I think you should be aware that a lot of people in this room are very supportive of what you just said. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And thank you, Dana.
I just want to, as the representative in the area that you know, a lot of this stuff comes from. Thank you for acknowledging that the pain is real, and thank you for acknowledging the emotion is real, and equally thank you for trying to get us to a point where we can find corrective and creative solutions to bring that temperature down and communicate the next steps. And I have some comments, but I'm going to reserve those to the end of the meeting. But thank you for saying that, and thank you for addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And Jan, I would be remiss if I didn't say anything, because I'm glad that somebody outside my district stood up. It's been a tough time. As you know, I personally have dealt with this. And as much as the things that we want to do, and we wanted to get community meetings going, the one we started went exactly the way you described. And as Wes comment, let's get the community together. I would love to, but it gets so negative. So we need your help to turn those attitudes around, that we're not sitting here and not acknowledging there's still situations and still problems. And every time something's said, it's twisted. And it's just an ongoing issue that we want to fix it, but some things just are in a process and won't be fixed overnight. And we need to somehow come to a reasonable way of moving forward, so that as time goes and we can fix some of these issues, because we all are working different angles. Anne and I know I have, and you have, and so we've all been working on this, but there's, you know, solutions may not be seen by all, but we have to go by what this organization is leading us. You and I are just two votes in this whole thing. So we need to keep moving forward and working for a common sense solution that we can all live with.
Thank you, Supervisor Spiegel. And as you said during the Pledge of Allegiance, we have opportunity here. So let's make the most of this opportunity. Okay, so let us now move to number 5, which is additions and revisions. Are there any additions or revisions? No. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, we will now go to back to number 7, which is our public hearing, and it remains open from the May 12th commission meeting. So Michelle Cisneros, if you can present this for us.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Harnick and commissioners. At the last commission meeting, staff presented the initial executive summary for the fiscal year 22 budget. Today, I'm going to present the complete budget document for your final review and approval. The following slides will provide an overview of the activities that we've included in next year's budget. Next slide. Oh, do we have the slides up?
No, we don't.
Looks like we may have lost IT. One moment, please.
Thank you.
Which slides are those? I don't have them.
The budget slides. Item 7.
Oh, all right. Hold on 1 second.
Thank you.
This is the incorrect slide.
This might be, is this 9?
No, this is from a different meeting.
Please proceed. I'll go try to find the slides.
One moment, Michelle. I think I can pull them. I apologize.
Sure, not a problem. Thank you.
Here you are.
Thank you, Lisa. Can you proceed? Thank you very much. So commissioners, since the last budget was presented to the commission, staff has continued to reconcile and analyze our data. We've made adjustments to the fiscal year 21 projections and the fiscal year 22 budget amounts, resulting in an increase of $50.3 million to fund balance reserves. Some of the significant adjustments will include a $15 million increase in Measure A sales tax revenues for both fiscal year 21 and 22, a $5 million increase in LTF sales tax revenues for both fiscal year 21 and 22, a $4.6 million increase in local streets and roads expenditures for both fiscal year 21 and 22. And these are the Measure A sales tax revenues that are returned to the local jurisdictions. A net $1.3 million increase in fiscal year 22 local reimbursements for the 91 Corridor Operations Project, a $1.2 million increase in fiscal year 22 salary and benefit expenditures for the reorganization and staffing level increases to meet our required task and demands in the toll operations and the capital development and delivery programs, and a net $19.5 million decrease in fiscal year 22 operating and capital disbursement expenditures after final review of transit operator SRTPs. These adjustments did not affect our ability to fund any project or program for fiscal year 22. Next slide, please. After staff's final analysis and reconciling the adjustments to the initial budget as noted in the previous slide, staff is projecting that we will begin the new fiscal year with $1 billion in fund balance reserves. For fiscal year 22, estimated sources are budgeted at $1.6 billion and estimated uses at $1.7 billion. The budget anticipates that uses will exceed sources by $108 million, resulting in the use of project and program fund balance reserves, primarily for the 15 express lanes completion, the Lake Elsinore 15 Railroad Canyon, the 79 realignment, the Mid-County Parkway, including the 215 Placentia interchange and its second construction project, the closeout of the 91 project, and the Coachella Valley Measure A highway and regional arterial projects. Of the $909 million projected end-in fund balance reserves, 99.5% is restricted for specific projects and programs that are funded by Measure A, TDA, TUMP, motorist assistance, and toll operations. The remaining 0.5% is assigned for management services. Next slide, please. This table presents the fiscal year comparison of all commission revenues and sources. For fiscal year 22, the Measure A and LTF sales tax revenues are based on economic data that's been provided by the Commission's sales tax consultant, as well as current trends. Our sales tax revenues have performed surprisingly better than we expected during the pandemic, and this is due to online sales and Measure A sales taxes that are assessed based on place of consumption versus point of sale. To help clarify the difference between place of consumption and point of sale, Measure A is a county local 0.5% transaction and use tax, which is based on the place of consumption, and LTF is 0.25% of the state sales tax and is based on the point of sale or where the cash register is. For most walk-in establishments, the place of consumption is probably the same as the point of sale. However, there are exceptions, which include auto sales as well as out-of-state purchases and business-to-business transactions. So if I were to buy a new car in Riverside County, the decision wouldn't solely benefit RCTC. As a San Bernardino County resident, San Bernardino's Measure I half-cent tax would benefit because my residence determines the place of consumption for this transaction and use tax. However, the purchase occurring at the point of sale, which is in Riverside County, RCTC would realize the LTF portion of the sales tax. As noted in the previous slide, our staff revised the Measure A and LTF sales tax revenue projections. Measure A went from 195 to 210 million. I'm sorry, I think we're on the wrong slide. We need to be on slide 4. Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry about that. Backing up, our Measure A went from 195 to 210 million, and LTF from 100 to 105 million for both fiscal year 21 and 22. The STA sales tax is generated from state-wide tax on diesel fuel and is allocated by the state based on population and as a percentage of transit fares, and includes SB1 state of good repair revenues. Our federal, state, and local revenues are on a reimbursement basis and will be received by the Commission as eligible project costs are incurred. Some of the significant project reimbursements include the Mid-County Parkway 215 Placentia Interchange and its second construction project, the 7191 connector, the 60 truck lanes, the 15 express lanes southern extension, the 91 corridor operations project, the 1591 express lanes connector, the Haruba and McKinley Avenue grade separation projects, as well as rail station rehabilitation and improvements. Our TUMF revenues include the Commission's share of TUMF fees, and they remain flat for fiscal year 22. Estimated tolls, penalties, fees reflect a 105% increase, and they include the 91 express lanes revenues at $41.5 million for the 5th full year of operations and $23.6 million for the first full year of the 15 express lanes. Our debt proceeds reflects the one-time refinancing of the 91 express lanes 2013 toll bonds and the TIFIA loan, and will be offset by the related one-time debt service payment. Our TIFIA loan proceeds reflect the final drawdown on the TIFIA loan to fund the 15 express lanes project. And our transfers in are primarily for debt service funding, the 15 express lanes project, the 1591 express lanes connector, the Hamner Bridge widening, the Mid-County Parkway 215 Placentia interchange, and rail maintenance and operations. Next slide, please. This slide provides the summary breakdown of the Commission's cost by program, and in the next few slides, I'll discuss these in a bit more detail. Management services comprised of executive management, administration, external affairs, and finance represents only 1% of total uses. Our regional programs comprised of planning and programming, rail maintenance and operations, commuter assistance, motorist assistance, and regional conservation represents 11% of total uses. The capital projects development and delivery program is a significant part of the Commission's budget at 32%, and the total use of our total uses, and it illustrates the Commission's core project-driven environment. The toll operations program at 3% of our total uses, it reflects an operations component to the Commission and includes the first full year of the 15 express lanes and the 5th full year of the 91 express lanes. Our debt service of 42% of total uses includes the $646 million one-time expense for the refinancing of the 91 express lanes 2013 toll bonds and TIFIA loan. This one-time expense reflects the refunded principal and interest of about $496 million, cost of issuance of $2.8 million, and payment to escrow agent of $147.4 million. The debt service payment is offset by the debt proceeds that was mentioned in the previous slide. The remaining balance of about $83 million reflects the principal and interest payments for the Measure A sales tax revenue bonds and toll bonds that have funded capital projects. Our transfers out at 11% of total uses relates primarily to the transfers for debt service funding, the 15 express lanes project, the 1591 express lanes connector, the Hamner Bridge widening, the Mid-County Parkway 215 Placentia interchange, and rail maintenance and operations. Next slide, please. Management services departments perform the Commission's overall support functions, and it represents only 1% of the Commission's total budget. Excluding transfers out, management services reflects a 4% increase from the fiscal year 21 revised budget due to FTE allocations, the addition of 1 FTE for a community engagement manager that was approved by the Executive Committee in May as part of the reorganization to meet our current tasks and demands, professional support of the regional conservation management, as well as commission insurance. At 31%, Administration includes our commission's office operations, the IT, human resources, and our commissioner support. At 45%, our finance includes external audits, finance and investment consultants, general business insurance, and the implementation of a new financial enterprise resource planning system. External affairs at 18% consists of legislative and communication support related to the transportation infrastructure interest and public outreach. And the remaining 6% relates to executive management to manage the activities of the commission's policies, projects, and overall services in the county. Our transfers out reflect the funding of a portion of the Western County debt service. Next slide, please. Several departments reside within the regional programs, which represents 11% of the commission's total budget. Public and specialized transit is the largest program at 67% and reflects an increase based on the final SRTPs that were submitted by the transit operators. The increase from the revised fiscal year 21 budget is due to decreased operating subsidy needs in the previous year, resulting from the available federal COVID relief funding. Rail maintenance and operations at 22% includes the Metrolink operations support and maintenance of the 9 commission-owned and operated commuter rail stations. The fiscal year 22 budget decrease from fiscal year 21 is primarily due to the inability to obtain access agreements with the host railroads for the Indio Special Events train platform for the Coachella Valley San Gorgonio Pass corridor rail service. The remaining regional programs include planning and programming at 4% for transportation funding coordination in the region, commuter assistance at 2% for promoting multimodal transportation options, motorist assistance at 3% for the motorist aid system in the county, and regional conservation at 2% for RCA management. And as you know, the commission became the managing agency for RCA in January of 2021. Our transfers out are primarily related to public and specialized transit for LTF allocations and to the general fund for administration, planning and programming, as well as rail operations. Next slide, please. The Capital Projects Development and Delivery Program, excluding transfers out, is our most significant program and reflects 32% of the commission's total budget. Salaries and benefits, professional services, and support costs are only 1% of the capital program budget. Outside of salaries and benefits, the bulk of the costs relate to general legal services, specialized legal, and general professional services for rail station development and rehabilitation. Program operations are 1% and include the Bechtel infrastructure program management activities, project support, and rail station maintenance. In the next slide, I'll discuss the engineering, construction, design, build, and right-of-way. Our local streets and roads expenditures reflect the Measure A sales tax revenues dispersed back to the local jurisdictions. The regional arterials reflects Measure A disbursements to the Coachella Valley for its highway and regional arterial programs. Our debt service at 9% relates to the payment of the debt on the 2009 Measure A sales tax revenue bonds. Our transfers out at 18% include transfers for debt service funding, the 15 Express Lanes project, the 15 Corridor Operations project, the Hammond Bridge widening, the Mid-County Parkway 215 Placentia interchange, the MSHC funding reimbursement, and the administration allocations. Next slide, please. Engineering, construction, design, build, and right-of-way represent the largest group of expenditures for capital projects development and delivery program at 57%. These expenditures will be funded with the new revenues and financing sources, as well as special revenue and capital project fund balance reserves. Some of the significant capital projects we've identified for fiscal year 22 include continuing activities to complete the 15 Express Lanes, construction and design build activities for the 1591 Express Lanes connector that is funded primarily by SB 132, construction activities on the 91 Corridor Operations project, wrap up various activities on the 91 project primarily related to right-of-way activities, engineering, construction, and right-of-way activities on the Mid-County Parkway 215 Placentia interchange and its second construction project, construction activities on the 60 truck lanes project, and other capital projects will include the 7191 connector, the 15 express lane southern extension, the 15 corridor operations project, the Pachapa underpass, the Haruba and McKinley Avenue grade separation projects, as well as various rail and regional arterial projects. Next slide, please. Fiscal year 22 will mark the 5th full year of operations for the 91 express lanes and the first full year for the 15 express lanes. Toll and non-toll revenues are based on current traffic, revenue, and trend data. The 46% increase over fiscal year 21 projected actuals is reflective of the first full year of the 15 express lanes operations. In March of 2020, the Commission approved the refinancing of the 91 express lanes 2013 toll bonds and TIFIA loan in order to achieve debt service savings and to increase our ability to fund and accelerate the 91 corridor projects with surplus toll revenues. The refinancing was postponed due to COVID-19 and the market disruptions that it had caused. Staff is currently updating the traffic and revenue projections and the financial modeling so that the revised legal documents can be brought back to the Commission for approval, hopefully this fall if market conditions are right. The debt proceeds reflects this one-time refinancing of the 91 express lanes 2013 toll bonds and TIFIA loan. Our personnel salaries and benefits represents 5% of the total expenses when excluding debt service and transfers out. The 54% increase from the fiscal year 21 projected actuals reflects the change in the FTE allocations for the first full year of the 15 express lanes operations, the addition of 3 new positions that's related to the reorganization of the toll program that was approved by the Executive Committee in May, and a 4% pull for performance merit-based salary increases. Professional and support costs represents 27% of the total expenses when excluding debt service and transfers out, and it includes the system, equipment, and road maintenance, insurance, violation enforcement, consulting services, and marketing. The increase from fiscal year 21 projected actuals reflects the first full year of the 15 express lanes. Program operations represents 69% of total expenses when excluding debt service and transfers out. It consists of the contracted operators' expenses related to operating and maintaining the toll lane hardware and software, customer service center, toll processing, violation collection and processing, and the required repair and rehabilitation of the 91 express lanes. The 110% increase from the fiscal year 21 projected actuals reflects the first full year of the 15 express lanes operations and the required repair and rehabilitation of the 91 express lanes. The capital outlay at less than 1% includes the transition to the National 6C transponder technology. Our debt service primarily reflects the $646 million one-time expense for the refunding of the 91 express lanes toll bonds and the prepayment of the TIFIA loan. This one-time cost in fiscal year 22 is offset by the debt proceeds as previously mentioned, and it is needed in order to achieve debt service savings and to increase our ability to fund and to accelerate the 91 corridor projects with surplus toll revenues. And our transfers out include the Commission's authorization to use surplus toll revenues for the 1591 Express Lanes Connector project and for the administrative cost allocations to the general fund. Next slide, please. This slide presents the Commission's budget by function. The largest categories include projects and operations at 43%, debt service at 42%, and transfers out at 11%. Only 4% is related to personnel, professional services, support, and capital outlay expenditures. Our personnel costs increased, and it includes a full year of additional staff for the regional conservation and maintaining its management service levels, the reinstatement of funding for 4 previously approved positions, a 4% pull for performance merit-based salary increases, an annual salary range adjustment, as well as action that was taken by the Executive Committee in May to add 3 new positions related to the reorganization of the toll program and 1 new position for community engagement. Our professional services are expected to decrease due to the completion of the traffic relief plan, refocusing the rail operations planning efforts, and change in the hosting of the regional rideshare and van pull system platforms. Support costs are expected to increase about 5%, primarily for the support and maintenance of the toll operations, which includes the first full year of the 15 express lanes. Projects and operations are expected to increase due to the capital project activities that were noted in the capital project highlight slides. Our debt service reflects a significant increase due to the one-time expense for the refinancing of principal and interest of the 91 express lanes, 2013 toll bonds, and prepayment of the TIFIA loan, as noted in the toll operations slide. Our transfers out include the debt service funding, 15 express lanes project, the 15 corridor operations project, the 1591 express lanes connector, the Hamner Bridge widening, the Mid-County Parkway 215 Placentia Avenue interchange, MSHCP funding reimbursement, administration allocations, and public and specialized transit allocations for rail station operations and rehabilitation. So it's important to note that our primary sources to fund our projects and operations costs come from new revenues, transfers, debt proceeds, and restricted fund balance reserves. Next slide, please. Measure A limits the Commission's administrative salaries and benefits to 1% of total Measure A sales tax revenues. In addition, the Commission adopted a policy for total administrative costs not to exceed 4% of total Measure A sales tax revenues, inclusive of the 1% cap on salaries and benefits. For fiscal year 22, this graph shows that administrative salaries and benefits at 0.71%. In regard to the board adopted policy limiting total administrative cost to 4%, we are projecting those costs at 1.92%, well below the total Measure A administrative cap of 4%. Next slide, please. So this budget presented to you includes staff's final review and analysis, as well as the executive committee's reorganization and staffing levels that were approved in May. Staff is recommending to close the public hearing, approve the salary schedule effective July 1st, 2021, located in Appendix B of the budget document, approve the revised Measure A and LTF sales tax revenue projections and its related expenditure budget increases for fiscal year 21, approve the revised Measure A and LTF sales tax revenue projections for fiscal year 22, approve the use of surplus toll revenues for the 241-91 connector effort, and to adopt the proposed fiscal year 22 budget. Any additional input can be made today with the expectation that the public hearing will be closed and the fiscal year 22 budget is adopted, as the Commission's policies do require the adoption by June 15th. This concludes my presentation, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Do we have any public comments on the budget?
I don't see any public comments, and we didn't receive any written comments.
Okay, thank you. So I will now close the public hearing and we'll take comments from the commissioners. Are there any comments regarding the budget as presented? And I do want to thank you for your explanation on the generation and allocation of Measure A, LTF, and STF funds. I always appreciate that. Thank you. Does anyone have any comments? I see Supervisor Spiegel.
Michelle, awesome job, both in the written document and your explanation was very clear. And as Jan said, with the Measure A is always that lingering piece of document that we've got to make sure that we keep reiterating what voters voted for and that we are meeting those guidelines. So thank you for the presentation and of course the written document.
Thank you, Commissioner Spiegel.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, that I would ask for a motion, and please remind you to give your name when you give a motion or a second.
Motion to approve for Rupa Valley.
Thank you.
Second, Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Can we have a vote, please?
District 1,
District 1, yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Banning, Beaumont,
Yes.
Blythe,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake. Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Cathedral City,
Yes.
Coachella,
Yes.
Corona,
Aye.
Desert Hot Springs,
Yes.
Eastvale,
Aye.
Hemet,
Yes.
Indian Wells,
yes,
Indio,
Aye.
Parupa Valley,
Yes.
La Quinta,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
aye,
Menifee,
Is yes.
Marina Valley, Marietta,
yes,
Norco,
Yes.
Palm Desert,
Yes.
Palm Springs,
Aye.
Harris,
Yes.
Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
San Jacinto, Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar.
Yes.
Thank you. That item does pass.
Thank you so much. Well, we had good news there. If a year ago somebody had asked, I don't think we would have been so, thought there'd be such a rosy picture with the sales tax, that's for sure. Okay, so we'll now move to the consent calendar. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on any item on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion at this time, and please identify yourself.
Move approval, Cathedral City.
Whoa.
Okay, we have Cathedral City for the motion. Who is the second? Is that Linda Molina?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Excuse me, I need to interrupt for 1 second here. Mr. Jeffries, our contract is on the agenda and I did provide a campaign contribution. So with regards to 8G, I recommend that you abstain either on that item completely or at least related to the best estimate for your contract. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, just have the record reflect that I am disqualifying on the BB&K contract.
will do. Thank you. District 5,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Okay. Sorry about that, yes.
Blythe,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes. Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Cathedral City,
Yes.
Coachella,
Aye.
Corona,
Aye.
Desert Hot Springs,
Yes.
Eastvale,
Aye.
Hemet,
Yes.
Indian Wells,
yes,
Indio,
Yes.
Parupa Valley,
Yes.
La Quinta,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
aye,
Menifee,
Yes.
Marietta,
yes,
Norco,
Yes.
Palm Desert,
Yes,
Palm Springs,
Aye.
Harris,
Yes.
Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar.
Yes.
Thank you. The consent calendar passes.
okay, thank you. We'll now move to number 9, which is the approval of the MetroLink operating and capital subsidies. And Mr. Peterson, would you present, please?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the commission. I'm here today to give the update on the MetroLink budget. I want to first off thank RCTC's MetroLink board representatives. They've done a fantastic job in a very challenging year. So from my position, I really appreciate all your efforts. So I want to start off with that. Move to the next slide. RCTC has been involved with MetroLink since inception 28 years ago. It is a 5-county JPA trying to coordinate a regional rail service. Working with the other members can be challenging. but at the same time, we all have similar goals, so it works very well. Through the years, RCTC has made significant rail investments on the 3 lines serving Riverside County, including the Riverside line to Los Angeles, the Inland Empire Orange County line, obviously to Orange County, and the 91 Paris Valley line, which we extended in 2016 to go ahead and have service all the way into Paris. There's currently 9 stations in Riverside County that are owned and operated by the Commission. This presentation will focus on the funding that we actually share with Metrolink for that service. Next slide. FY21 has been a challenging year for everyone. The pandemic has really hit transit very, very hard. So Metrolink is no exception. We're working on a recovery plan framework to try to go ahead and get back on track. It's focused on safety and trying to make sure that we'll be able to add trains when the time is right. Although during the year, Metrolink has done a great job of working through its existing contracts. It's updated its operations contract, as well as the track and signal and infrastructure contracts that actually saw some cost savings and some improved services. So that's been really good news with that. In addition, there's been a number of new promotions targeting new riders to get people back on the trains. There's been a kids ride free on weekend effort when it was safe. There's a loyalty program that's been advanced, as well as a 5-day pass, really to focus on those commuters who are coming in on a more infrequent basis, to give them a better option to use the train when it's appropriate. Also, during the time it's been a little bit quieter, they've enhanced the capital rehabilitation program of Metrolink to go ahead and take care of some of the issues that have been ongoing. Next slide. When we look at this chart, it's kind of hard to believe that we've actually had this kind of chart that lasted a full 12 months or more, but it talks about the ridership decline compared to pre-COVID levels. So as you can see, we started off with a really steep jump. It's climbed up through the years on some of the routes. In January, we hit that 3rd wave and everything dropped again. But we are seeing the recovery at least through April, and we'll probably see it get better as we continue. But most of the lines are improving over time. The one exception is the Riverside line, which seems to be stuck at its 90% reduction. Part of the challenge with that is with the service reductions, they actually cut 40% of those trains. So there's only 7 trains running out of the initial 12. So hopefully as people start to go back to work into LA on a daily basis, we'll add back those trains and this line will grow quickly. Next slide. So when we talk about the COVID-19 issues, as I mentioned, there was a service recovery on most lines of about 30% that went into effect in March 26th of 2020. During this time, Metrolink's really been doing a great job of focusing on the essential workforce, healthcare, and law enforcement. They've done fantastic marketing to support that, as well as supporting their outreach to identify how much they're cleaning, they're sanitizing, and their appropriate use of social distancing on the train. They implemented a How Full My Train Is app so people could check to see on any given train what's the trend, if it's full, if it's reasonable as far as the number of passengers on board. They've conducted a number of surveys as well that look very optimistic. So once people return to their offices, they anticipate about 86% will return to using Metrolink, which is good news. On the next slide, we talk a little bit about Metrolink's crystal ball and how effective it's been and what it looks like in the future. When we started the pandemic, we had 3 service scenarios, a best case, a middle case, and a worst case, 1, 2, and 3. We decided to go forward with a scenario 2 in the middle of the road. As we started the year, we had a scenario 2A. When we hit that 3rd wave, Metrolink decided to go ahead and develop a new scenario 2B. So that shows the growth projections for how the service will recover back to 100% of the pre-COVID ridership, which even with this scenario looks like it will still take a couple of years to get back there. But hopefully as things improve and potentially improve quicker than anticipated, we could see growth come back even sooner. So it isn't interesting to kind of try to guess what's going to happen through all this pandemic. On the next slide. We talk about the FY22 highlights and goals. So we're really focusing on the recovery plan, how quickly we can get back to normal. We're going to implement a regaining ridership marketing effort. So really reach out to those people who in the survey said they'd want to come back as soon as their jobs are available. So we're really focusing on them, as well as broadening the overview of the different riders to Metrolink. So looking at more weekend riders, looking at different summer vacation options, trying to get people to realize that Metrolink is a good alternative. The other key element we're working on is focusing on equity. Part of that is a trial low-income fare that is going to be set up in place to go ahead and offer a special discount for those in the most need. In addition to that, Metrolink will continue to improve its reliability, on-time performance, and really focus on the customer experience going forward, along with its ongoing focus on safety. And one of the big issues that's been coming up is reducing trespasser injuries. There's significant challenges with homeless and transient populations near the railroad tracks. We're doing an enhanced effort to try to address those concerns. The other big issue in FY22 is Metrolink will appoint a new CEO. The application deadlines were on Monday, so hopefully with a little luck, those decisions will be made in the next few weeks or months, and Metrolink will be able to get on its new path going forward. Next slide. Talk a little bit about the financial impact to RCTC directly. Our share of the operating subsidy is $21 million. Of that, we still have $10.3 million of the CARES funds that we will apply in FY22. We will use a combination of local transportation funds at roughly $10.3 million, as well as grant opportunities with the low carbon transit operations program grants. That's kind of our funding mix to cover our operating subsidy. We also have a capital funding requirement of $4.2 million, which we will apply grants to that as well. So we do have the funding to meet the needs this year, although going forward, it is something we'll definitely need to watch. So on the next slide, we talk about the action items. So basically approve the budget with the operating and capital amounts, and authorize the executive director to execute the memorandum of understanding each year, which outlines the plan. And on the next slide, I will be available for any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments? I see Ted Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I appreciate the optimism on getting the computer links back up to that. A word of caution, everything I've been reading says that it's going to be slow for people to go back to their offices. And I understand, Mr. Peterson, the way this is going to happen. So I would hope that when we do these budgets, we look at, it may not be a 12-month thing. It may be a prolonged time as folks jump back on their trains heading from Riverside County to Orange and LA County as this new normal, as I say, is people staying in their offices. And I appreciate your optimism. I just think that we ought to look at this as it's going to be a long-term investment. So with that, if numbers don't show up, we have to understand that what's going to happen. So that's just a reality check on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bergson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So as one of the Metrolink reps for RCTC, I just wanted to kind of give a couple of thoughts on this whole issue of Metrolink. First of all, just in a global, 5,000 foot elevation level, the idea and concept of Metrolink is to get vehicles off the road, reduce emissions, and they do that very well with the new Tier 4 locomotives. All of those are now at Metrolink. Finally, the 40 units have been delivered. The last unit should be in revenue service in the next month or two. The other thing is Metrolink is constantly, almost daily, looking at the number of passengers on every train. They have a new part of the app that allows people to see how many people are on a train so they can make a decision whether to ride that train or wait for another one. The hardest challenge, aside from the pandemic this last year, was the unfortunate news that about a year and a half, Stephanie Wiggins was our CEO, and she, as well as our board secretary, both have left Metrolink and have moved on to LA Metro. So we are in the process of, as Sheldon mentioned, the applications for the new CEO were already just due, and I believe in the beginning of July, we'll have a closed session meeting with interviews of the top contenders. So hopefully we can find somebody that will be able to carry the torch of Stephanie. She made major changes in her year and a half. Our prior CEO before that, things were just struggling. So I just want you to know we're going to be looking for somebody that can kind of mimic what Stephanie brought to the table. A lot of good things. And so that's really just kind of the main points I wanted just to let everybody know that doesn't have all the insight that the four of us who represent RCTC as Metrolink board members have. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak on this.
Thank you for the information. Executive Director Mayer. Okay, so we'll go to Commissioner Middleton while we're figuring out the technology.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to second the thoughts of Commissioner Berkson, and as a new alternate to the Metrolink board, publicly thank Commissioner Berkson and Commissioner Spiegel, who are our voting representatives, and both have been outstanding in their representation of the county. Commissioner Hoffman raises the issue of how long it's going to take before individuals start returning to the workplace in the kind of numbers that were historic. One of the ideas that I'd like to plant in everyone's mind is the future of rail in Southern California needs to be not solely linked to transportation of individuals to and from work. We need to really start thinking about how do we use the rail network as an opportunity for individuals to use when they are recreating and going to various events. And I don't think our system today is set up in the way that we need to do to be able to be a transportation network that gets people from Riverside County to Orange, Los Angeles, San Diego County, for the kinds of, in the other directions as well, that we go to on our weekends. And when I think about some of the traffic in Corona, how much of that traffic could be improved if more individuals were able to ride the train to the beaches and to other events that they're going to. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, you know, I appreciate seeing the dollars that we're putting into this. It's very important. And I can tell you, just based on, I've dove in headfirst into this VMT and the way SB 743 is going to affect transportation agencies in counties in California and how we build projects. And like Commissioner Berkson said and Commissioner Middleton said, light rail is the future. And we need to push as hard as we can and try to identify where we can find funding, put these plans in place in places that we don't currently have it. And Commissioner Middleton made a really great point about, you know, how many cars could we get off the road? And you know, I always go back to talking to one of the transportation engineers early in my career, telling me that, you know, each lane of traffic on the freeway holds about 2,200 cars an hour before it breaks down. And if you start allocating that 2,200 people onto trains, we're going to need more trains, and we're going to need more trains in places where we don't currently have them. You know, the 15 has gotten a lot of attention, you know, lately, and I can tell you in discussions with Caltrans at the headquarters, they're the VMT folks, the SB 743 office, telling them that not being able to or having to mitigate, you know, large amount of mitigation, millions and millions of vehicle miles traveled on the 15, is literally almost impossible if we were going to build, just an additional general purpose lane or our, proposed southern extension. If it was going to go all the way to Temecula, you're talking about anywhere from 250 to 300 million vehicle miles traveled. And her response to me at the time was, well, where's the public transportation? And I said, well, if I want to go to Temecula and I want to go and enjoy enjoy a glass of wine or go to Old Town, I got to get in my car. I don't have any other choices. There's no bus, there's no train. And in fact, we don't even have we have an idea, but we don't have a plan. So I think that, the way that the state is moving, the way the federal government's moving on infrastructure, we have to have something that expands upon what we're doing, the great things that we've done so far, the history that we have with Metro and working together with them. We need to find ways to expand those current systems, and I think we've done a great job with the pieces that we've had. They're being used, and I agree with Commissioner Hoffman. It'll take some time, but it's going to come back, because I think that I had this discussion with the state as well. When are they going to start telling people that the freeways aren't going to get better? Our executive director said it many times that we can't build our way out of this. The public needs to realize that it's not going to get better, and you have to have other options, whether it's living where you work, working where you live, looking at public transportation. We're not going to see additional large scale improvements in general purpose lanes or even toll lanes. Frankly, the way I'm reading it and trying to figure out, what the VMT mitigation is going to be, we have an uphill battle, and the sooner that we get ahead of this thing and try and find ways to plan and then find money, the better it's going to be for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, it's Supervisor Hewitt. You're next.
Thank you, Jan. I'm the biggest skeptic here on anything rail. Obviously, with what happened with COVID, we were starting to get a few riders and stuff, but that really went back. I'll tell you what, I was in Chicago this last weekend, and I rode the L from O'Hare downtown, and there were 17 stops. It was a $5 ticket that I bought. Uber would have been $70, and it would have taken longer because of the congestion on the freeway. So I think what Commissioner Middleton said is spot on. We look at more than just commuters going into work. I think with all of our opportunities, not just in the Coachella Valley, but all over Southern California, these things connecting to airports and ports and everything else, better than we already do. I think that's what, if you get a skeptic like me saying something good about this, and I realize Chicago Transit Authority is a little bit different than Metro and Metrolink, but I see some hope, and that was a really good experience. So I'm plugging that. I think we got some places that we can, but we got to nab people. You got to get the real skeptics like me.
Sounds like we got you. Commissioner Betts.
Yeah, thank you. I think what's going to have to happen is, to make the rail attractive for people, is they have to know they can get where they're going to go once they've gotten on the train and gotten off it. For example, to a store, and to do it easily. I spent 10 years of my life in China, drove maybe 1,200 miles in a car during that time, and everywhere I went was by, taxi, train, every other method of transportation you can think of. I even went 90 miles from the city of Wuxi down to Shanghai to go buy a computer, and those days it was the old big clunky monitors, but I knew that I could do that by simply walking out my apartment, putting my hand up, getting a car to take me to the train station, take the train, get a bus, get the subway, get there, get the computer, have somebody load it in the car for me, and I barely ever touched that big heavy monitor or that computer. But it's all because I knew I could make that trip. So I think as we start to look at rail, we have to look at not just getting somebody from Desert Hot Springs to Corona, but from Corona to the Best Buy or wherever it is that we want to go. And if we don't put that piece of the puzzle in place, the public's just going to say, I need my car. And last thing I want to say is, I think Commissioner Middleton's comments that we can't just rely on it for work, we have to start relying on it for these other purposes is very important. So I hope my screen didn't freeze up and Don't seem to see anybody moving, but anyhow, those are my comments. I hope they were heard.
Thank you, and they were heard, and you're still moving. Okay, Mr. Norman.
Hi, yes, Marvin Norman here again. Thank you for the ability to comment. I also echo the comments that have been made by several other commissioners, and it's good to see that RCTC is standing strong with Metrolink. And as others have noted, the train has to move to be something that's more reliable and accessible for people. And I know RCTC is working on several projects to improve that. And Metrolink also has their SCORE program, which will also, if it is fully funded and implemented, would also go far in that direction by, putting up trains that is and half-hour frequency on some lines. I think some lines in Riverside County were in 15-minute frequencies. And at that rate, it gets to be a usable system where people can go outside and they don't have to look at a schedule per se. They just go outside and know that there's going to be a train coming up every few minutes. And that's what it's going to take to really get people to use it. And the other thing that it would take, and there's a lot of research showing that when people have access to the train, especially at the ends, by biking and walking and these other little micro mobility options, when those options are easy, people have a transit mode that is in many cases that's as fast as driving. If you can get to a train, because going around town, a lot of times it's about the same speed to bike or use a little scooter or whatever as it is to drive, and you get to the train station, it's the same speed as driving, if not even faster in some cases. So I know RCTC has their phasing plan last year. You guys looked at some bike projects, and I know you guys are working on like the Santa Ana River Trail, but also making a more concerted effort, maybe work with Metrolink to develop a first mile, last mile plan that focuses on getting people that easy commute, easy trip down to the train station. Especially given that most people can travel about 3 or 4 times as far on a bike or on a little electric bike as they can walking in the same amount of time. So, your 15-minute, your half-mile transit shed around a train station suddenly goes up to about 3 or 4 miles if you include the ability for people to bike there easily. So some things to think about. And I know also that RCTC has in previous years had several studies on extending rail service down to Temecula, both down to 15 and the 215 corridors. And both of those are also potential alignments for California high-speed rail. So while I know that we don't expect RCTC to build high-speed rail, I think given that those are potential alignments, it would be useful for, to start pressuring the authority to move their planning efforts for phase 2 forward, so that if RCTC is making investments in those corridors, they can be investments that are going to be enhanced by high-speed rail, not something that would be torn out or demerited by high-speed rail in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Molina.
Good morning. I think it's still morning. I just wanted to say that in my city, my small little city, another council person and myself have for the last 5 years taken it upon ourselves to just what everybody is saying. It's all about connections. We actually take and offer trainings to individuals. We actually travel with them to the transportation hubs. We actually teach them how to use their smartphone, how to load apps, how to check, when their train or bus is coming, how to keep an additional charger for their phone. The Metrolink trains that, some of them have charging centers, some don't. The bathrooms are clean. And we actually, show them how to make connections. Like if you're going into LA, going to Disneyland on the RTA bus, going to Big Bear, the bus takes you to the Village, and then how to get back. And going in one direction, all of the cost savings of going from bus to Metrolink to Metro Rail, even the downtown loop buses that go in the same direction, they take you to all the little cultural communities in LA, J-Town, Chinatown, Little Armenia, Koreatown. There's just so much to see, Dodger games, the music center, and then how to get back. So that really works well. Our city, we just lost our transportation line through our city. So we'll just have to amend, indicating where the bus lines are that connect to the hubs. But it's something that's really simple. And if you manage your time, It's an option not to go in your car. So if anybody wants to have information on what we do, I'd be glad to provide it, but it works. And it's getting people out of their car and into mass transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no pun intended. We got to get back here on track. So Executive Director Mayer, please.
Thank you very much. Just a few comments, and this was a really terrific conversation, and that's why we wanted to bring this as a discussion item to this commission. First off, let me just highlight something that was already shared, but I can't tell you how proud we all are of Stephanie Wiggins for becoming the Chief Executive Officer of LA Metro. That is a huge accomplishment. She is now leading one of the largest transportation agencies in the country. And we are always, always, always proud of our RCTC alumna, Stephanie Wiggins. So congratulations to Stephanie. She and the board, Metrolink board, did such a terrific job over the past year of managing through this crisis. And as has been mentioned, it's going to take a couple of years to come back. But there's a concentrated effort not only amongst the Metrolink staff, but also the staff from the member agencies to do everything we can to get Metrolink back on track and to bring riders back in a way that they feel safe, and to ensure that we can continue to provide transportation options for folks. Everything commissioners have said and Mr. Norman have said about the future of rail is really, really important. We are currently updating our rail strategic plan, so we'll be bringing that to you at the end of this year for further discussion. As always in Riverside County, rail and expansion of rail, whether we're talking about, the expansion out to Hemet San Jacinto, which we bought all that right of way a couple of decades ago, whether it's along the 215 or 15 corridors or out to the Coachella Valley, there's always been keen interest in it. And commissioners, it's simply a matter of money. It can be done. I think we are positioned well. The Coachella Valley San Gorgonio Pass rail study that's out right now, we couldn't be at a more perfect point in time in terms of seeking funding for the next phases of that. The Metrolink capital program called SCORE, which has additional capital investments, will really make a difference. And then we're going to need the operating money too. So there are a lot of plans in place. The timing seems to be looking really good for future investments of other people's money. But again, it's really a matter of where can we make strategic investments and how can we try to make sure that rail service is a viable option for the residents of Riverside County, whether they be for commuting or for personal use. I think now is really an exciting time for conversations about rail. And we're going to have to be really, really aggressive and really engaged in conversations about rail funding at both the state and federal level. Thank you.
Thank you. Undoubtedly, this is going to take a shift in thinking. We have to change the way we think. If we keep doing the same things, it's not going to take on the popularity as it has. And I love what Commissioner Molina was saying about introducing people to the process and providing them with a level of comfort. So we do have to change our thinking. And on that note, Commissioner Reed.
I enthusiastically move the adoption of the staff recommendation.
I knew we could count on you. Is there a second?
Lamar will second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. District 1.
District 1, yes.
District 2.
Yes.
District 3.
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
District 5.
Skeptically, but yes.
Beaumont.
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Calamasa.
Yes.
Canyon Lake. Canyon Lake. Cathedral City.
Yes.
Coachella.
Yes.
Corona.
Aye.
Desert Hot Springs.
Yes.
Eastvale.
Aye.
Hemet.
Yes.
Indian Wells.
Without any hesitation, yes.
Indio.
Aye.
Harupa Valley,
Yes.
La Quinta,
a good fit for
Yes.
me.
Lake Elsinore,
Aye.
Menifee,
Yes.
Marietta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Palm Desert,
Yes.
Palm Springs,
Aye.
Paris,
Yes.
Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
Riverside,
Skeptically 2.0, yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
and Wildemar.
Yes.
Thank you. That item passes.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now go to item number 10, the fiscal year 2021-22 Transportation Development Act, Article 3. Jenny Chan, can you please help us with this?
Great. Good morning, guys. This item is to approve the funding recommendations for this year's SB 821 call for projects. This item was approved unanimously by the Budget and Implementation Committee. SB 821 is a discretionary program administered by the Commission to fund bicycle and pedestrian projects. Eligible projects include construction of bicycle lanes, sidewalks, and ADA curb ramps, and also the development of bicycle and pedestrian master plans. The program is funded through the Local Transportation Fund, or LTF, which is a state sales tax. On every odd-numbered year, the Commission conducts a competitive call for projects. This year's call opened on February 1st and closed on April 29th. We received a total of 35 applications with a total funding request of $9.8 million. Our funding capacity for this year was $4.3 million. This year's evaluation committee included staff from Caltrans District 8, CVAG, City of Indian Wells, RTA, WRCOG, and SBCTA. On May 11th, the evaluation committee met and scored the project applications based on the Commission's adopted evaluation criteria. Staff recommends funding allocations for 15 projects that scored a 40 or above, totaling $4.3 million. For your convenience, I put together a map that shows the locations of these 15 projects. Can we pull that up, please? Great. So lastly, the City of Rancho Mirage submitted 3 applications with a total funding request of $1.2 million. The 3 applications each scored more than 40 points. However, funding all 3 applications exceed the $865,000 cap as stipulated in the guidelines. Staff offered 2 options to city staff: prioritize the 3 projects or adjust the funding request for each application. City staff opted to prioritize the Bob Hope Drive Access Ramp Retrofit Project and the San Jacinto Drive Corridor Walkway and Sidewalk Improvement Project. A summary of the recommended allocations is provided in the staff report. Similar to past cycles, Coachella Valley continues to compete well in the program, with 34% of this year's funding going to the cities in Coachella Valley, which is well above the region's fair share. Staff will monitor the mid-year LTF projections in January 2022 to determine if more funding is available to fund additional projects on the list. That completes my report, and I can take any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments on this? Okay, seeing none.
Menifee will move approval.
Thank you. Is there a
La
second?
Quinta second. La Quinta second.
Thank you, La Quinta. Can we have a vote, please?
District 1, District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Blythe,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Cathedral City,
Yes.
Coachella,
Yes.
Corona,
Aye.
Desert Hot Springs,
Yes.
East Bell,
Aye.
Hemet,
Yes.
Indian Wells,
Yes.
Indio,
Aye.
Harupa Valley,
Yes.
La Quinta,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Aye.
Menifee,
Yes.
Marietta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Palm Desert,
Yes.
Palm Springs,
Aye.
Paris,
Yes.
Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar.
Yes.
Thank you. The item passes.
Thank you so much. Okay, there were no items pulled from the consent calendar. Are there any comments from any of the commissioners? Okay, I see none. And how about any?
I see Commissioner Speak with his hands raised.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I held my comments from earlier to at this point because I'd like to make sure I put some extra emphasis on them. Myself and on behalf of my colleagues, the City of Corona, we do not condone and completely condemn any threats of violence in any way. We're always looking for solutions. We want to make sure that that is conveyed to the commission and to staff. But with that stated, I want to kind of follow up a little bit from what Councilmember Steiner said earlier, that frustrations with the toll lane exit at Cajalco and the associated chaos has reached a fever pitch, as you all heard. Backups on the 15 regularly backed up for about 2 miles, usually between the Magnolia and Ontario exits. Commute time usually started around 4 o'clock, maybe a little bit before, and ended around 7-ish, with associated backup on city streets of Ontario, Green River, Foothill, as commuters from the south just trying to get home. The new condition now with the toll lanes going through the commuter time is now starts around 3 o'clock and then frequently extends past 8 o'clock Monday through Friday, with backup going regularly back to the 91 interchange. And then lately, this newest boost, as Councilmember Steiner said, we're still seeing insane amounts of traffic on Saturdays and Sundays. But with the added bonus of now we have a pretty large toll. And that, sometimes I think I saw a picture of a toll that was over, was $11. I've seen them as high as $6.50 or $8 to travel a mile or two. Now, this wasn't expected. As it was brought up at the last meeting, we built, half a project because of funding. The traffic modeling showed that the shift in bottlenecks would shift this bottleneck back to Cajalco, just as the partially built 91 project. Those issues now are being slowly corrected with the budget that we just passed. Lots of projects they'll be helping kind of fill those gaps, with just a couple of things outstanding. The eastbound 91 between the 241 and the 71, and the improvements that are going to be east of the 15 on the 91. And I want to thank all of you for continuing to invest in the corridor. Not as a representative of the city of Corona, but as a commissioner for all of RCTC, and a commuter and a resident that wants to see the mobility of Western Riverside County work for everyone. The $2 billion invested in this corridor was not, and I said this many times, was not for the city of Corona. It is for the region. These two corridors bring billions and billions of dollars in salaries and revenues to Riverside County, not just Corona. I have asked city staff to work on getting some videos and some heat maps together to show how the issues that we have on the 15 have impacted city streets, and some solutions, and being solution oriented. Back before I was elected, with a small group of folks, we were very solution oriented and making sure that we brought solutions. So I wanted to ask a couple of questions that I know cannot be addressed today, but I want to get those out in the open. One is the toll policy. Is there a limit on how high the tolls can go in the southbound 15? And how are we communicating this to the public that an $11 toll or a $7 toll between Ontario and Cajalco, what is that? What do people understand that to mean? And I think, I brought this up, I think, in past meetings about a potential ballot measure, or not ballot measure, but a bill that I had teamed Truth in Tolling, that we need to tell people how much time they're actually going to save for the money they spend. And I've said this to people, before. If you were told you were hungry and you hadn't eaten in 2 days, and someone says, do you want a sandwich that costs 50 cents, or do you want a sandwich that costs $5? People are going to assume that $5 sandwich is much better and much bigger. And if you're hungry, you're going to fork over the $5 expecting it. But the problem is that those sandwiches are the same. So people need to know what they're buying, and we need to know how much time they're saving. And I get that you can use Waze, and I get that you can use Google, but I think we need to be honest with people and tell them how much time they're going to save. Because, and I think I remember as part of the 91 project, there was a discussion about what level could tolls rise in order to divert people out of the toll lanes. And I think that number, if I remember right, and maybe staff could correct me later on, but I think it was anywhere from $3 to $4 a mile. That once it hit that range, that it didn't matter anymore. People were gonna go into the toll lanes regardless of the price. And we've certainly exceeded that in the 15. So I would like to discuss at some later date of placing a limit on the tolls in this section. I don't want to eliminate them, as Councilmember Steiner had suggested earlier. I do think they're part of the toll policy, and we should have those. But I think we should find a way to limit those, because frankly, we've created this with the project that we've built, and I want to find a way that we can still capture revenue to push these projects forward, but at the same time be honest with people. And one of the questions I asked the executive director before was, have we compared the travel times and the heat maps pre-project opening to what was projected in the original traffic study, and is it the same? I think it looks the same. It would be good to share this information with the public, and that goes back to Commissioner, or to Chair said earlier about communicating these, these facts. These facts are important. We know that the project was extensively modeled, and we have this data. We need to share it. But I know we did not study the impacts, what the impacts would be to city and county streets in this area. I know Supervisor Jeffries and I and Supervisor Spiegel and I get a ton of calls and a ton of things. The more information that we can give people, the better. And I don't mind engaging people on social media and trying to lower the temperature and provide those facts and what we're doing. I know that RCTC and staff is working very diligently on finding some alternative striping plans and finding some way to mitigate this. I'd like to be able to tell my constituents and frankly, the commissioners on the 15, your residents are driving through this too. So the more information that we can all give to our residents, the better. And then where are we in the 15 corridor operations project? How soon? What can we do? What are the sticking points? Is there a legislative fix that we can do to exempt this project from some things to get this to move forward? I tell people it's funded, it's in planning. We approved it last year, but the big question is when. And the answer of it'll be here in 2.5 years is met with some expletive deletives. But I'd like to find a way to show that we're pushing this forward as fast as we can in whatever options that we can. And I believe as part of the 15 ad hoc committee, I had asked for a future conversation about talking about the rail fixes that we talked about, that the world has changed. The world is changing. We need to change. We need to come up with some and be nimble and being able to identify how we can best find money at the state level, at the federal level, to push some of these alternative projects to take advantage of what SB 43 is, 743 has given us, and what the federal transportation bills that are coming down the pike, and the way that the feds are looking at our greenhouse gas emissions and how we handle those and how we mitigate for those. Because as I said earlier, we need to be honest with people and tell them that the toll lanes are a temporary fix. Unless people change their behavior and getting on alternative transportation or finding work close to home, it's not going to get better. working with Riverside County EDA and the city to try and find some pilot projects to do some recruiting. I know that that's not part of this commission. However, the economic development portion of getting people to work where they live will lessen the impacts on transportation, and they should be part of the discussion. Lastly, I did send an email to all my colleagues on the ad hoc committee, the 15 ad hoc committee, that the city of Corona back in 2019 passed a resolution, and RCTC took this forward to Caltrans to address the operational lane drop issues on the 15. And thank you to Mr. Beauchamp and Caltrans for taking that forward and studying it and agreeing with us that there were issues and there were things that could be done. And as part of the SHOP project, and there was a corridor operations study that they did back in 2020. I would love to get help from my fellow commissioners on the 15 and RCTC to help push this forward to make it become a project. I think Caltrans has identified it as a need, but without it having a project, we can't find funding. The state has put $2 billion into the SHOP program for this upcoming fiscal year, and the sooner that we can identify this as a project and get Caltrans to help fund this project. I'm not proposing that RCTC funds this. Frankly, I think that $2 and soon to be $2.5 billion that the taxpayers in Riverside County have paid for improvements in this area is enough, and it's time for the state and some other folks to pitch in to get these things done. But thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoffman.
Oh, Commissioner Speak just about said everything I wanted to say, because I too was listening to Councilman Steiner's comments about Corona and my fellow council members to the south of me. And I know the problems. Sunday, for example, and I'll back this up, it took me an hour to drive on the 18 miles south from Norco to Indian Truck Trail. And that bottleneck that we've created is the road rage, or let's put it this way, the short-tempered drivers getting off of that those routes, just it makes it even worse. And then it took me 2.5 hours to drive to Temecula on Friday, and I didn't leave in the I left midday or late morning, and 2.5 hours to drive down there. It is a mess. And like I said before, I don't agree with trying to change the toll. I think we do need to make some corrections and perhaps some adjustments to it because of the fact that it's not done. I know that just looking at our budget, we estimating getting $21 million in funds from that for the next year's budget from the I-15 toll. Those monies we need to pay for our expenses, but and I agree with Commissioner Speaks, at what cost? These people are upset. My folks in my community are upset because of the delays trying to get up and down on the 15. But in all, and we need to think our transportation methods and how we get there. I grew up in Riverside County. In 1950s, there was 200,000 people in Riverside County. Today, there's over 2.5 million people in Riverside County. We created this mess as essentially as making things grow fast. So now we have to pay for that. And if it means putting trains in or some kind of a rail system, we're behind it. We're behind it. We should have been doing it years ago and not worried about it now. But let's fix it for the next generations. And I'll agree and support Commissioner Speaks on that. We need to start going on it. And we needed it done 10, 20 years ago. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hernandez.
Oh, it sounds like this is the time where everybody's asking for projects. So I just want to make it known that we have a lot of priorities as well in the East, and it's important that we balance, the priorities. Every single one of our areas needs things. Our communities are frustrated and asking that things get fixed. And we've waited patiently, and certainly Corona has gotten over $2 billion worth of project improvements, and there are a lot of other areas as well that need them. So I think how we balance things, how we really look at how we can kind of just create more equity in throughout our county, and not necessarily ship people out of our county, but keep them in, that I'm really interested in hearing. So just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your comment. I see no one else. So Executive Director, Mayor, did you want to conclude?
I do. Thank you very much. So last Friday, the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee Chair DeFazio released his 5-year, $547 billion surface transportation reauthorization bill called the Investing in a New Vision for the Environment and Surface Transportation in America. So it's Invest in America Act. The act directs federal investments in roads, bridges, transit, and rail. Included in the bill language authored by RCTC is increasing the competitiveness of grade separation projects for federal funding, ensuring RCTC and other self-help counties in California are eligible to compete for new grant funding programs. This is really great news for RCTC and other self-help counties because we want to be eligible for new grant funding. A lot of the ideas and suggestions being made today will all require a great deal of money, so we need every penny that we can get from as many of the other sources as possible, because frankly, we don't have it all in the RCTC checkbook. Previously, we had reported to the Commission that we've been advocating for earmark funding. We submitted federal earmark requests totaling $50.5 million. And on Monday, we found out that 2 of our requests were added to the Invest Act. $20 million for the I-15 Next project, which is the extension of the Express Lanes North in a partnership project with the County of San Bernardino that was submitted by Representative Takano, and $3 million for the I-15 Corridor Operations project that was previously mentioned, that was submitted by Representative Calvert. There are still several steps to go before this funding is approved, but we are one step closer, and we're very, very appreciative that these projects made it into the first draft of the Invest Act. Other Riverside County projects we're also excited to hear, nominated by our partner agencies. $12 million for the Scott Road Bundy Canyon Road Widening Project with Menifee, $5 million for the Temescal Canyon Road Widening Project, the El Cerrito segment. That's an important project for the County of Riverside, and $20 million for the Monroe Street Interchange Project in Indio. So we are delighted that more than $60 million made it into the Federal Invest Act. So congratulations to the teams working so hard to at least get our foot in the door. And our goal is going to be to try to make sure that money stays in the act all the way through the end until it's authorized. That completes my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, and I just want to add before we conclude that I genuinely believe there is not anyone who comes to and participates in this meeting who condones any violence or anger, but as leaders, it is incumbent upon us that we have to be honest with our communities. We have to encourage calm and civility, and so we can get to the solutions. So I know that we all come to this meeting to do our best work representing and for all of our communities. So I thank you all for your time and contributions today. Our next meeting for the commission is Wednesday, July 14th, 2021 via Zoom. This meeting stands adjourned.